What's better than a multi-day tent sale with long boxes of comics being sold for 25 cents a piece? Not too much. Check it out. Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Chris and this is Northgarden Comics. You know, you may have heard me mention once or twice a chain of bookstores in my area called Half Price Books. They're not just in my area here in Minnesota, but I do know there are places where they aren't. So if you're not familiar with the chain, Half Price Books does just what their name says. They sell most things for half off retail price, and they carry books, magazines, records, CDs, DVDs, and yes, of course, comic books. And that means that on any given day you could go in and search for comics and pay $1 to $2 per book. Now there are a couple big sales they do each year. One of those is an annual clearance tent sale. And then the way the clearance sale works is everything in that tent sale is no more than $2, but with comics it's super good because every comic is only 25 cents a piece no matter what it is. I'm going to show you the books that I got at the last tent sale where I was able to build out some runs. I even found a few fun little keys. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. Alright, we're going to get started with Cable here. This is volume 1, number 9. This volume ran for a little over 100 issues, started back in the 90s. I was not actively collecting this at that time. And then I think over time, I started to see some of these lower numbers at, inexpensive prices. So I figured, what the heck, I'll just pick some up. And so I set an initial goal of just getting the first 10 issues of the run. And so far, that's where it is. And maybe someday we'll add more to that, but for now, the goal was just the first 10. Here we've got some FF, part of Jonathan Hickman's time on the title. On this day, I got number 20 and number 21 for a quarter a piece again, everything a quarter. Here we've got a shift of gears to some Silver Age, a title called Not Brand Ek. It was from 1968, this particular issue, number 6. You can see it's in not the best condition. Somebody wrote their name on here. You got some markings up here. It's not very white anymore at all. You got some creasing down here in the bottom, real worn out color damage there. But this is an example of a book that it's only 25 cents, so why would I leave that behind? So grabbed it for a quarter. Similarly, but not exactly the same, this is a book, Fright, featuring Son of Dracula, number 1, first appearance and origin of the character Son of Dracula. It's a minor key. I don't have any vested interest in the character, but again, when I come across a book like that for 25 cents, I'm not going to leave it behind. Here we shift over to some 90s nostalgia here, Clandestine, a creation of Alan Davis, and I just actually showed this book on a recent video featuring some of the 90s gimmick covers, and this is a great example of that. You got the nice rainbow effect there on the metallic background. I, again, wasn't collecting this. I think it only ran for like 12 issues, but yeah, grabbed it because it looked cool. Civil War series, this was one I did piece together over time in back issues. I did not collect it when it was coming out. And then I had the thought for a little while, maybe I'll put together a second series if I can find it, or a second, run of that event series and then sell it or something. It's really cooled off in recent months and years, and you can get it pretty inexpensively. So my plans for selling a second set of this have kind of fizzled. I haven't really pursued that at all, but at the time I was looking for some of the second copies of these issues, and I picked up number 3, although this is a second printing of number 3, and I found another copy of issue number 7, the final issue, and that's a very iconic image there. They used that in the Civil War movie as well. Here we've got part of the Captain America run, The Death of Captain America, issue number 25. Again, this was only a quarter, so very happy to grab it. One I did not get at the sale that day, but I'll show you because it's on the back. I already had the variant edition that I picked up. I don't recall where I got that one at the time. I'd have to check my CLZ app for that. But for a quarter this day, I got that cover there. Then we get over to some Daredevil. This is a run I'm working on slowly but surely. And on this particular day, I grabbed issues 21, 22, 23. So we got a good little run going here. 24. This sticker is on the bag, not on the book. 25. And then 34. I'd like to have numbers 1 through 81. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Then we go over to some Marvel Tales starring Spider-Man. This is issue number 132. And again, grabbed it. It's a reprint of Amazing Spider-Man 155. It's got this origin of Captain Britain in the back. But again, quarter, grabbing it. And it's a newsstand. Some of these limited series that I come across as well, you know, if it's a character I like, I'll just try to piece it together. The first one in this kind of era was the Marvel Knights X-Men miniseries, 5 parts, and I think I'm missing just 1 issue of that now, but I'm not really aggressively pursuing these. These are just things that live on my wish list, and I pick them up when I can find them cheap. And so this was number 2 of 5 of this Marvel Knights Spider-Man. Have not read it yet. I'll read that someday when I have all 5. Here's another limited series I was working on putting together, mostly because, well, I do like the character Superman, though I don't actively collect him today. But this is John Byrne and a classic limited series for the Man of Steel, and thought, you know, as a comic collector, this would just be good to add to my collection. And again, not going to pass it up for a quarter. Got numbers 5 and 6 on this particular day, and the pages are in good shape as well. Here we actually go over to an Image book, East of West, number 1. You know, the number 1s get pretty hard to find unless you're willing to buy the, what do they call them, the Image Firsts, the reprints of their number 1s. This is one that, you know, has gotten such a treatment in reprint, and thought it would be pretty uncommon to find a number 1, especially for a quarter, so I grabbed it. Here we've got a tie-in series from the Marvel Secret Invasion event series. This is the X-Men 4-part limited series. I mistakenly said in an earlier video that I thought I found numbers 1 and 2 at a Garage Con. I've got other videos on Garage Con if you want to see those. But in fact, it turns out I've picked up issues 1 and 2 at this tent sale for 25 cents a piece. Love the Terry Dodson covers here. The colors are fantastic. And yeah, grab them for a quarter a piece. All right, here we've got some Excalibur. Excalibur is a volume, first volume of Excalibur, ran for 125 issues. I was collecting it early on. That Excalibur number 1 was, I think, my first number 1 for an X-Men related title, and then I collected for like 30 issues or so before I, you know, got into other things and then came back to it. But I've been trying to piece together this volume now ever since, and there were a handful of issues here for a quarter a piece, number 53, and all in really good shape too. The whites are nice and white on the covers and the corner box, and the markings there. Pages are nice and crisp as well, so I'm gonna grab those. Here's 57. And this is during a time, you see, a late December. This is a time they were producing, what, 2 and maybe even 3 comics in a month, where you'd have like early December, mid-December, late. I got a lot of late month versions here. Jumping up to number 108. That's a cool cover. 109. And then 110. Again, it ran for like 125 issues. Here's just a one-off. Well, in my collection, it's a one-off. This is X-Men Unlimited number 41. Not trying to get this whole volume, but this helps me accomplish one of my collecting goals, which is to have all of the cover art and most of the interior art done by artist Chris Bacalo. Really like his style. I just think it's really unique, and I like his take on characters. This was an example of his cover art. Gambit's miniseries ran for 4 issues. I have since picked up number 1, but on this particular day I grabbed numbers 2, 3, and 4. So that was cool. Then we shift over to Thor. He's a character I really like. I got into him most during Jason Aaron's time on the title. These issues are from the first volume of Thor. Not trying to get that whole run, though I am trying to piece together the Walt Simonson run of Thor. Love his covers, love his art style. I also, one of the kind of maybe quirky things I like to do with volumes is wherever I'm collecting in the title, I don't really pass up picking up either, of course, first issues, but then also the final issues of a run. Sometimes those can be harder to find if they were lower print runs, but these couple pickups here represent the end of Volume 1 of Thor. So number 501 and then 502, and boy does this, you know, scream 90s nostalgia. Obviously, this is 1996. Everything is extreme. Look at his hair is crazy and mega shoulder pads and his little midsection showing there. His hammer, and then this, I don't even know what the deal is with this massive chain connected to Mjolnir there, but yeah, that is 90s extreme at its finest, dare I say. And then this one here, this last one, this was the final issue in the volume, but then they had this kind of epilogue book. I haven't read this yet. Special tribute, looking back, I guess, on the whole volume. But Thor, the Legend, again, more, there's that chain again attached to his hammer. Don't know the deal there. I'm going to have to look that up. Here we got Marvel Age. This is a title. I actually did collect several of these when they were coming out, but nothing this early. And this was a really cool pickup because this is features a preview of He-Man in the Marvel, in Marvel Comics, and it's a minor key. It's not highly valuable or anything. Just cool to have. I loved He-Man and Masters of the Universe as a kid. Loved watching the cartoon. My brother, I remember, had a bunch of the toys, and yeah, so that was just a fun, nostalgic pickup there. Now we jump back to much more modern, current comic here. Oblivion Song, also done by Image. This is another creation of Robert Kirkman. I picked this one up kind of on the cheap as back issues. I think I have the first 18 or so issues and that I've been able to piece together over time. This has been, it's a pretty enjoyable series. You know, this is due to a failed science experiment where they basically tapped into an alternate dimension where there's these monsters and faceless men, and this guy here, he's got a technology that allows him one person at a time to zap people back and forth. But what it essentially did was, when the first accident happened, it took an entire section of a city and zapped it to oblivion, is what they called it. It almost reminds me of like the Upside Down from season 1 of Stranger Things. But yeah, all these people were zapped there, including his brother, and they've got a whole society there now, and he's been trying to rescue people to bring them back to the, quote, real world, and there are people who are welcoming of that, and there are others who are not, but it's been a pretty good story, and like I said, I've been picking this up as I can, just as back issues. Alright, last stack here. Here's a character I will admit I really don't know much, if anything, about. I know there are many of you that I watch on YouTube that love the character of Moon Knight. Very excited, for example, to see him joining the current run of the Avengers title, and there's talks of TV shows and all those kind of things. So there's definitely hype and energy around this character, but I just don't have any history with Moon Knight. I did, though, really like these covers that I saw, and again, 25 cents a piece, not going to leave them behind. This is, I think, the writers, is it Charlie Houston, and then David Finch doing the art here in his covers. Really cool cover for number 1, and then again for number 2. It definitely has that Daredevil kind of Batman type of a feel to it. So glad to have those. And if you know anything special about that run, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Here we've got a series. It was a limited series, 4 issues, drawn by Alex Ross. And I think it shows the Marvel superheroes from the point of an everyman character, and they have these cool kind of special, clear covers here. And the tent sale had number 2 and number 4, and this was one I wasn't particularly hunting for these, but I saw them and grabbed them. Now, of course, I want the other 2 issues in the limited series. Here's a Series 2, NYX. This series featured the first appearance of Laura Kinney, X-23. This is issue number 1, not the most valuable one in the volume, but figured I'd grab it for $0.25. It's also signed here. I don't know whose signature that is, or if it's authentic. I can only guess that maybe it is. You know, I don't know how many people are running around out there autographing comic books and then selling them to half-price books if they're not real. But anyway, so that's signed there. Just cool to have in the collection. And then we've got this run here, X-Men Legacy. I'm a huge X-Men fan, and you know, very rarely is it that I will turn down an X-Men comic book if I don't have it in my collection, and if it's only a quarter. You'll see a price tag here of $1 on this one. That's the price they would have been selling it for in the store, but when they were gathering books for the tent sale, I imagine this just made the cut for that, and so that was going to get sold as a quarter. But this volume ran from issue, I think it picked up in issue 208, so you had the X-Men volume that started with Jim Lee back in the early 90s. That ran through issue number 207. When it hit 208, it changed titles to X-Men Legacy, and it continued on until issue 275. After that, it did go back to regular X-Men title, and it got rebooted with a new number 1. So these are comics that I am not aggressively looking for. I just keep my eyes out, and if I can find them for cheap, then I'll grab them. So here they had number 209, 210, 211, and one quick story I'll share with you while I'm showing you these covers here, unrelated to these exact books, but I was at this tent sale, and like I said, there's about 7 or 8 long boxes that they have out at any given time, and you know, it's just, you're just looking through them, and I all but one of the long boxes were facing me, so I figured I would start at the left, work my way to the right, and look through all the boxes. And the very far end box on my right was facing the other direction, so I'd have to go around the table to look at the books in there. And I figured, that's okay, I'll just come back to that one. Well, as I'm looking through the boxes that are facing me, there's a couple that walks up to that one box that's facing the other side, facing them, and they begin to look through the books. And of course, there's always a part of you that wonders, are they going to find something that I really want, and they're going to get there ahead of me? And they came across a whole run of books from the Sensational She-Hulk volume, and including some of the keys from that volume. And I saw them pulling them out, and I was thinking to myself, I can't believe they're grabbing those books, because I would have grabbed those. That is a volume I'm trying to piece together. And the kicker was that they really weren't even that interested, and I started to hope maybe they'll put some back. They started talking about their daughter, who may enjoy some of these comic books, but clearly from the conversation, neither of them nor their daughter are comic collectors or readers on any regular basis, but they were looking at these books, and they even called the daughter to see, would you want any of these comic books if we can get them, since they're only 25 cents a piece. And the daughter said, and I was standing right there, so I heard the whole conversation, the daughter said, you know, I might take one, you know, just like grab me a comic book, that's cool, but clearly had no interest in all of these. But the dad still said, what the heck, they're only a quarter a piece, we'll just buy them all. And you know, part of me wishes in hindsight I'd gone back and said to them, hey, you know, if you're not really interested, I would love to buy those, you know, because I'm collecting that series. But I didn't say anything. They took them. So odds are they're just sitting in some closet somewhere, or were sold at a garage sale. I can hope that maybe a collector got their hands on them at some point, or maybe that girl read them and she fell in love with them and wanted to collect. Who knows? You know, those are all optimistic thoughts, but the small person part of me just says I missed out on those comics that I would love to have in my collection. So just sharing that for some honesty, full transparency here. You know, not always it's not always a win, but that's where I say, you know, patience is one of the best things you can have in this hobby, especially if you don't want to pay a lot for books, because you know there's going to be times where you lose out on things, and you just can't let it get you down. You just keep hunting. There's plenty of other comic books, and yeah, another day will come when I'll find some Sensational She-Hulks. So that was the X-Men Legacy stuff. And this last one here, that is the last issue in the run, 275. It is a variant. So I have a variant and the regular cover now. And then here's where it shifts over to X-Men, X-Men Volume 2. But here's number 20. And this ran for like 41 issues or so, I think. And 21. Again, not aggressively collecting these, just piecing them together as I can find them for cheap. I've got one last book to show you from that day, from the tent sale, so that weekend, and I actually didn't realize I'd pulled it out of the stack, but now I'll show it to you now separately, and here it is. It is a coverless comic book. This is an X-Men comic. It's a lower number. I'll give you a second before I tell you what number this is to see if you can tell from that. That is the first page of art, and if you can read that at all, if you know what number this is. There's your hint. You got a first appearance and origin of this character, El Tigra. You know it? Don't know it? This is X-Men number 25. And this is another great example. I don't expect that I'm ever going to own a complete... I didn't expect I would own any copy of X-Men number 25, just because I mean, maybe the day will come where I will fork out some big dollars for some bigger books, but that day has not come yet. I'm still looking to piece things together as much as I can for very inexpensively. But when I come across something like this, X-Men number 25, even though it's coverless, I figure I'm going to grab that because it's only a quarter. And there's absolutely no reason to leave that behind. And it's probably going to be the only copy of X-Men 25 I ever own. So super happy to have that, and great to be able to get your hands on. I've read this digitally, but it's super great to get your hands on a physical copy, flip through it. I love to see the old ads and read the bullpen bulletins in the back. So just super fun addition to have to my collection. And another example of you just don't know what you're going to find at these tent sales, because they've got a mishmash of so many different things from all eras, great books, everyday books. But every once in a while you stumble across a cool find like this. All right, that's going to do it for me, and that's going to wrap up the books that I picked up at the Half Price Books clearance tent sale. Oh, wait, I do have one last thing to show you. Not comic books, but comic book related. These two little figures right here. We've got a Windblade, and not sure if this is Skywarp or Thundercracker. The purple makes me want to say Skywarp. The blue makes me want to say Thundercracker. I'm going to go with Skywarp right now. Could be completely wrong, but I love the Transformers. I have been a fan of them since the 80s. You know, the Gen 1 cartoon, toy line, comic book. This franchise is actually what got me into comics to begin with, but my wife and I were at a garage sale yesterday, and they had a free table, and these two were on the free table, and they actually transform. So cool to add those little fun freebies to my collection as well. I hope that in all of the books I showed you today, you saw something that you liked. If there's something you know about one of these books that I did not mention, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. If you like getting good books at great prices like I do, you might want to check out this video for some more good, cheap comic goodness. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.